Okay, today I'm going to go over uneven lies and I'm going to share with you some strategies that will help you make the correct adjustments. So I want you to keep in mind, just like every other aspect in golf, that we need to kind of discover what works best for you here. So we'll just look at an even lie here first to understand, or to make sure we understand what that is, and its stance is level to the ground. We're going to look at uneven lies here in a moment. So if the lie is uneven, the goal or the three objectives here, and generally speaking, is to recreate the even lie. So we want to try to get back to these positions as much as normal once we get onto slopes. We want to encourage solid contact because the slopes are going to throw off our swing. That's something we want to make sure we're focused in on. And we want to encourage a balanced swing. So again, whenever we get on uneven slopes, it's going to throw your balance off. So we want to make sure we stay balanced throughout these hits on uneven lies. Take a look at the next picture. It's just the same objectives, an even lie just from the front point of view. You can see we have kind of the line of his hips, and this would be the natural tilt of your shoulders, just basically because your right hand's going to be lower than your left hand. So that's naturally going to tilt your shoulders here just a touch. Okay, so let's get into below the feet. That's the first uneven lie we'll take a look at. You can see here the golf ball is below his feet, and that's why they call it a below the feet lie. So some adjustments that we need to make would include the following to help counter this. So first thing we want to do is keep knee flexion throughout the swing. Because the ball is somewhat further away from us in theory, the last thing we can afford to do is let the club get closer to us, okay? So if we lose posture here, or we lose this knee flexion, that's going to kind of stand us up straight. When that happens, the club itself will get more vertical. When the club gets more vertical, the club head pulls closer to you, okay? So that's why it's important to feel like you're kind of seated throughout these hits whenever the ball is below your feet. Weight distribution, okay? You can see when the slope is running this way, it's going to have a tendency to put the weight on your toes. You need to be aware of that and make sure that you're keeping a balanced weight in your feet. Anticipate the shot tendencies. Okay, when the ball is below your feet, it's going to have a tendency to squirt right and have curve to the right, possibly. Okay, so you need to be aware of that and make adjustments necessary for that. Every player is going to be different, but that's definitely a tendency of this lie. Stance width. The objective with the stance width is to be able to keep balance. You know, below the feet lie is one of the most difficult of the four common ones we're going to talk about. So balance is going to be important here. Distance away. You want to make sure that you're not standing too far away. Again, so you cannot afford to stand further away in the beginning. That's just going to make it more difficult to achieve what we're trying to do. Ball position. It's kind of relative to your stance width, but the main objective here is to have it in a position where you can get solid contact. You definitely do not want this ball too far up in your stance. I would try to keep it near center or a little back would be a good idea. Okay, let's take a look at the next uneven lie. It's going to be above the feet. Okay, this one is not as difficult as below the feet, generally speaking. So above the feet, the adjustments include the following: choking up on the grip. Because the ball is now closer to you in theory, we want to make sure that we're choked up on the grip for a couple different reasons. This is going to help us make more solid contact. It's also going to help us not stab the ground too early. The ground's going to be closer to you, so this will help you level out with it. Weight distribution. Now we can see, okay, the weight is kind of going towards the heel because, or I'm sorry, yeah, towards the heels of your feet because the slope is pulling this way. So you need to be aware of that, and in the beginning, make sure that the weight is somewhat balanced within the feet here, okay? Anticipating the shot tendencies. Now this shot is going to have a tendency to curve or go left, okay, for a couple different reasons. You're swinging flatter around your body, and also the face at impact is more at this angle because of the slope. That makes it go left too. Stance width, okay, similar to below the feet. The main objective here is to make sure the width is proper so you can keep balance and keep solid contact. You know, something I personally do when the ball's above my feet, to take some of the left out of it, I'll make sure I'm aimed off to the right, knowing that it's still going to go left with its tendency. But I'll open my stance to somewhat counter things at times. So that's just an idea to help take some of the draw out of it if you're not wanting too much of that in the shot. Ball position, okay? Main objective here is just trying to get solid contact. So again, I would keep it somewhere near center. I wouldn't get it too far off of center. All right, now let's take a look at the next uneven lie. All right, we're going to look at uphill. So uphill, of the four, it's probably the easiest one, I would have to say. And the adjustments include, main thing here is we're trying to get our shoulders and hips now running with the slope, okay? So we would want our hips kind of more now with the same line of the slope, and we want our shoulders, which that's going to be almost done with its natural tilt, running with that slope, to be swinging with the slope. So if we can get our body running with the slope, it makes the club want to level out with the slope, okay? Now, anticipate distance control. So when you're hitting up slope, okay, or uphill lie, longer clubs, so like your 3-wood, 5-wood, long irons, 3 through probably 5 iron, they're going to go a touch further. As far as distance control with shorter clubs, they're going to go a touch shorter. So if you're hitting wedges or 9 irons from uphill slope, it's going to launch the ball too high initially. Now, anticipate weight distribution. So you can see with the slope running this direction, okay, the weight is going to have a tendency to want to pull this way, especially at impact and throughout your finish. So you need to be aware of that. A good way to counter that is to anchor a little bit of weight into the inside of your right heel here, or right foot, or inside of the right foot, rather speaking. Because another reason is when you're swinging up a slope like this, it's very difficult to get your weight over here at the finish and follow through properly, okay? So we want to make sure as we're swinging, we don't hang back and fall down the slope. All right, so let's take a look at the last one here. That's going to be a downhill lie. Now this one is not easy, as we all know. So some things we want to do to make adjustments here is, again, like we were talking about with uphill, trying to get your shoulders running with the slope. Now this is a little bit harder to achieve with your shoulders, okay, because your shoulders naturally tilt kind of upwards just a little. So you might have to make a little bit extra effort to get this one running with the slope. And the reason being is we really need this club swinging down with the slope. You know, a mistake most people make here is they know the ball's going to come off lower. They try to help and swing up. And that's the last thing you want to do here. You need to just accept the fact that the trajectory is going to be lower because you're on a downhill slope. There's no way getting around it. So make sure that we're swinging with this slope. So get your body adjusted for this, because this is a difficult shot to hit. Ball position, okay? You do not want the ball way too forward here. You need to make sure you can hit it first. So keep it near center or even a little back than you would normally with your clubs, whatever club you're hitting. Anticipate the trajectory and distance. So like I was talking about, we are going to get lower trajectories from slopes like this. With all clubs, it doesn't matter what you're hitting. Now, opposite the uphill, longer clubs will go a little bit shorter because you can't get the proper launch angle, okay? But shorter clubs, you know, wedges, 9, 8, those should go just a touch further because you're actually launching a little bit lower. weight distribution. Okay, now our weight is now kind of pulling this way a little. When we finish, it'll want to pull us down the slope. All right, but the main thing here is just to get balanced. Okay, you could even anchor a little bit of weight into the left leg to make sure we're kind of swinging down this way where we don't get tilted at all at impact. But you need to be careful of that, because if you put too much, you could lose your balance and go with the slope. So make sure the weight is distributed where you can keep balance. Anticipate shot shape. Okay, on a downhill lie, it's going to want to squirt off to the right a little bit. So you need to be aware of that just a little. You also need to know that hitting a draw here is going to be very difficult to achieve, especially with longer clubs. With the stance, it's pretty much what we've been talking about with all these lies. We want to make sure the width of the stance is proper to keep balance, because this is a hard slope to hit from. You also get a combination of these lies. So some combinations you could get would be maybe a downhill lie that's also below your feet. Okay, you might get an above the feet lie that's also uphill. Now, above the feet and uphill have similar traits, just like below the feet and downhill have similar traits. So if you get a combination of these two, whether the ball is below or above the feet, okay, it could be one of those two, and it might be uphill or downhill. What you want to be aware of is you're going to need to use traits from both of these categories, whichever two they might be, and whichever slope is more severe, you're probably going to have to use the traits from that category to help adjust with the slopes. But I tell you, experience really pays dividends in these situations. So the more you get faced with these shots and the more trial and error you have with them, that's the more learning you're going to have, and you'll know what to do in the future with them. So hopefully these tips can help you with their uneven lies, and you all have a good day now. Thank you.